Case K?
Yes.
Great.
Right. The affirmative embracement of anxiety is necessary. It is necessary through the legalization of marijuana to actually be able to confront the systems that are the systems in the status quo. There are a few pieces of evidence that the negative has failed to actually answer. The first is the piece of IPC evidence right at the end of the debate, the end of the one you see, which ends up talking about specifically why affinity groups are necessary to be able to mobilize. This comes specifically through consciousness raising of the revealing of the public secret of anxiety, which only the affirmative is able to do because it embraces the way capitalism has created that anxiety in the first place. They have also dropped the historical analysis and the Lee's evidence, which talks about attacks against legal prohibition of marijuana are necessary to spill over and create counter-hegemonic forces at large, which are necessary to solve for violence in the status quo. Now, the biggest concession by the negative in this debate is that they have mishandled the way that anxiety ends up functioning. The one here is very good in the way anxiety is used as a tool of violence, but has been historically co-opted by capitalism. This is not something that speciesism can end up explaining, which is a reason why the permutation is necessary. Now, onto the decay proper. The permutation resolves all of the latest combination of the methods will allow for the most mobilization possible. The IPC evidence shows how affinity groups offer a space for multiple perspectives, such as the affirmative and negative, to coexist. This is key to solvency. One is the mobilization argument that affinity groups are necessary to actually be able to turn a theory into practice, means that the affirmatives method is necessary to create a correlative link between consciousness raising and mobilization, which allows for us to attack the structure in the first place. Second is the all is theory without a medium of practice, means that the affirmatives, the actual forefronting of the affinity groups is necessary to be able to do this. Three affects the question of how the structures intertwine, means that the app is imperfect but still a good idea because it is a necessary first step to being able to interrogate these structures in the first place, means that checks back any link arguments. Four is that the perm remedies the links or proves that the all never leads to action because they simply spend all this time theorizing. Now onto the line by line. For the first is their argument that we have dropped the fiat argument. No, we have simply forefronted that our method would be able to actually lead to a mobilization in the real world. There is no argument about why the alternative would be able to actually lead to this mobilization, be able to break down these structures in the first place. It means that even if the links prove that the affirmatives method is imperfect, it is necessary to mobilize and create, necessary to mobilize and actually break down the structural balance in the status quo. There is no impact framing argument in the entirety of the 2 and R, means that you should preview this because the structural violence that ends up occurring to all bodies due to latent anxiety is something that the affirmative tries to end up solving for. First, this is ended up solving for by the forefronting of the deviant. The bottom-up approach to the affirmative is necessary to actually be able to create this in the first place. Now, the root cause of it is pretty much, kind of hard to move through here. I'm just going to go for the argument that they're pretty much interpolated, means that the affirmative is necessary to at least question the way capitalism functions, even if they win that capitalism is a structure of speciesism. We have 100% solvency that we are able to interrogate and break down the structures of capitalism, means that we're at least a step in the right direction, means that the permutation is necessary to solve. Also, the alternative doesn't come to grip with the historical analysis of the one you see that was on the case debate. Now, their next argument is that the perm must center analysis or shifts. We must center the analysis of the alternative or it's not able to solve. The perm allows for this. The affinity group arguments allows for the consciousness raising that the negative is specifically talking about where the individuals come together and end up talking about the way these structures are intertwined or end up working together, but it is still, the alternative still doesn't explain the anxiety argument. Now, the next is next is that we include privilege move. The affirmative is not a privilege move. The forefronting of the deviant is necessary to actually be able to do this. We don't identify humans in any of our types or anything like that. We forefront the deviant body, which means that the affirmative is still a necessary step in the right direction. Also, means that we aren't privileged white people sitting here talking about the necessary way to do it without actually actualizing it. This is the forefronting of those that are present allowed for the breaking down of these structures in the first place. Now, their next argument, the root cause argument is answered above, but they say that the one you see is simply the mutual theory that doesn't actually do anything. We are fiating and saying that simply a mindset shift, but then the affirmative's method is a necessary productive one, and when the debate ends up coming down to methods, that the affirmative is a better solvency into this. They say that there's no affinity groups because we don't fiat, and the method directly leads to this. That was answered above. Now they say that there's no mobilization due to self-interest. This doesn't make sense because the affinity groups end up coming to terms with the consciousness raising, means that they're actually able to see the way the system ends up working, means that they're able to actually create a forefronting of the attack. Now they say factories are just a tool of capitalism. This again supports the argument that I make above, that the affirmative is at least a step in the right direction, means that you shouldn't vote us down just because the method isn't perfect, but simply that it's better. You should evaluate it versus, you should evaluate whether or not the affirmative is able to solve some form of violence, which is better than the status quo. Also, they say that they solve the entirety of the best evidence that is extended to 1 year indicts the next focus because they are never actually able to come to terms with the structures. They simply spend all the time thinking about theory. The affirmative's method is necessary to be able to counterproduce this because it actually attends to the structures that I'm creating. Even if we don't fully solve for it, it's still necessary to be able to move in the right direction. Now, the next argument is the app isn't enabled to solve because it recreates the vision of consumption understand that this is the one of your argument. The one of your argument is that you simply don't end up solving for this form of consumption because that you don't ever mobilize. You simply sit here and think about theory and then say that we have somehow changed something. That does not actually lead to mobilization. Also creates a disconnect. They don't legalize marijuana, which you have specified as a necessary way. That's the Malise evidence that's extended on the permutation debate in the entirety of the 1ER. They have dropped that attacking legal prohibition is necessary to be able to spill over counter-hegemonic discourses. Means that even if the affirmative is imperfect, means that the permutation would be able to solve that because we'd be able to spill over to these discourses at large. That's the entirety of the perm debate. Now I'm going to answer the severance argument here. We don't sever focus. We still attend to the systems that create anxiety in the first place. The permutation simply talks about how we need to move together both of these theories to get a more holistic approach to it in the first place. It doesn't sever the focus. Simply adds to it. Means that at best you should have gone for the intrinsic argument, but it's not there. It means you shouldn't vote on it. They say the link arguments here at the bottom of the debate only assume snapshots of the one you see, not the actual structure. Means that as long as we have one, that affinity groups are necessary to be able to create this, and they've granted us solvency, we are net beneficial to the permutation. Means that that's why you'll vote on perm free vote.